I mean, tribal tattoos look better on skin than traditional tattoos. I'll go on record saying that. Uh-oh. When I got this sleeve from Leo, right? He covered a few things. But I remember when I looked in the mirror after he had finished it, I was like, oh, I look cleaner. Aesthetically, I look actually, more refined.
So what do you think about tattoos like this?
I love them.
What do you love about them?
I think they're bold. I think they're strong, but they're like graceful too.
Oh, that's the worst thing I've ever seen.
What about lower back tattoos like this? Same thing?
I think I saw that on my mom.
You see your mom's lower back a lot?
Yep.
Oh, you mean my tattoo?
Yeah.
I have a similar one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think about Mike Tyson's tattoo?
I mean, I think it's pretty cool.
What do you think Mike Tyson thinks about Mike Tyson's tattoo?
I don't know. You should probably ask him.
Okay.
Hey Mike, how are you? Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I'm a tattooer, and I love tribal tattoos. And since you have one of the most iconic ones ever, how did you feel the first time you looked in the mirror?
I love it.
It looks amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike Tyson. Hello, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Books Closed. I'm your host, Andrew Stortz. Tribal tattoos can be polarizing for some. In Western tattooing, they started as the most punk rock design you could get. Then, over time, their popularity grew so big that the mainstream swallowed them up and it became the go-to style for many. Depending on your age, you may have a wildly different opinion of tribal. Leo Zulueta is the most significant American tattooer when we're discussing this style. He put a spotlight on the tattooing from indigenous cultures around the world, built his own style based on imagery he curated, and paved the roads that have led to modern blackwork tattooing as we know it. For getting his first push into becoming a tattooer from Ed Hardy, Leo's story is one filled with focus, research, passion, and just simply being the right guy for the job. He's just rolled out a book called The Black Wave, a collection of his words, art, and photographs detailing his unique and impactful career. I think this conversation was perfectly timed, as he was just finishing the final push on the book when we spoke, coming off a long time of reflection and digging through old memories. This episode is sponsored by Afterlife Press. More about them later. I really hope you enjoy this one. And without further ado, here is the King of Tribal, Leo Zulueta. Before we get back into the nuts and bolts of how you started tattooing, I wanted to ask, now that you're retired, can you actually shut tattooing off in your brain? Does tattooing ever actually end?
No. I mean, I was just looking at some old tattoo machines in the last few days, thinking that I need to get on that now that I'm in retirement and I have lots of spare time, shall we say.
Yeah.
That is one hobby that I'd like to look into is, wrenching on my tattoo machines.
Yeah.
So, no, it never does stop, really. I probably do, maybe a dozen small tattoos a year now in retirement, and I enjoy every single one. It's especially when I go to the tattoo shop and get to feel the whole vibe of, being back in the shop. And yeah, no, it never ends.
And that's probably cool for everyone at the shop too. When you're doing your number of tattoos a year, everyone knows Leo's back in the shop. There's some tattooing going on. It's probably a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, we have fun with it, for sure.
So let's throw it back then. Let's start with how you got your start into tattooing.
As a small child growing up in Hawaii, my grandpa had tattoos and a lot of my uncles had tattoos. And I really did know as a small child that, when I grew up, I wanted to have tattoos, Even though the Filipino community that I grew up with in Hawaii, they were tattooed with traditional Western imagery, i.e. Crucifixes, girls' heads, crawling panthers. That was one image that I was particularly drawn to as a kid. I always thought I'd get one. I never did. But I always thought I'd get a crawling panther. I always thought they looked really tough.
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to me, I ended up getting a small tattoo from Malone as I was leaving Hawaii in '74 to go back to California. So I got tattooed from Malone in '74 and was lucky enough to get tattooed a couple years later by Bob Roberts and Ed Hardy. Actually in '77, first by Bob and then shortly thereafter by Hardy. And that was pretty much the beginning.
It's not a bad way in.
Well, you know, I tell a lot of the younger generation, Andrew, that back when I was first around on the tattoo scene in San Francisco, there was only 3 shops, and that would be Lyle Tuttle's, of course, and Picture Machine, and Henry Goldfield's. Hardy did have a private studio in San Francisco at that time, but it wasn't a real tattoo shop. I mean, here's, even I was a kid walking into Realistic, and here's 2 kings of the tattoo world telling me that, hey, you know, go home, draw a design, come back, and we'll tattoo it on you. I mean, that was very unknown in 1977. So I feel very honored and blessed that I was, you know, happened to walk into Realistic Tattoo and experience all of that.
Yeah. So what was the path to, was it just some conversation that led to them encouraging you to bring in drawings, or how did that happen? Because obviously they were dealing with tons of people and clients and they weren't teaching everyone and encouraging everyone.
Well, how did that go exactly? Well, when I went in, Bob was there, and he showed me his photo album, of course, and during the consultation, he, asked me, well, what do you want to get? And I actually didn't really know. So he encouraged me to, bring a design in that I drew, and that he would do it on me. And so we did that. Ever since that time, Andrew, I never really could imagine what that moment meant, really. I mean, I'm still in awe that happened to me in 1977. I walked into Realistic and, ran into those guys.
Yeah, it is crazy to think back that your entire life could have been different. Had that not happened, had they been having a bad day or a different kind of day, or if you were having a bad day or if you didn't show up at all, that's a crazy thing.
Going back to my first tattoo from Malone.
Were you aware of who Malone was?
No. In fact, I was just going to say that I was in a tattoo shop on the corner of Smith and Hotel. It was actually on Hotel Street. And Filipino guy in there, and it was a Sunday. And so, it was my first time in the tattoo shop, really, and I was kind of scared, really, to be honest. And, I was in there for a long time staring at the walls. And so finally, the old guy says, hey, what, you Filipino? And I'm like, yeah, I'm Filipino. Hey, well, why don't you be a good Filipino boy and not get tattooed, So I was like, yeah, whatever, turned around and walked out. And so from the corner there, I looked down Smith Street, and there's a little small red tattoo sign. So I went down there, and that happened to be China Sea. That was May 1974. So, Malone was only in there 5 months or something, 4 months at that point. So I ended up getting a small little tattoo from Malone, unbeknownst to me. Hardy told me years later asked me, who was that, and I described what he looked like, and he starts laughing. It's all like, that's my buddy Malone.
I mean, tattooing was a much smaller world at that time than it is now.
Very much so. I mean, it's so vast now, Andrew. It's, for me, I've been around the business over 50 years, and actually last month was my 50th anniversary of being tattooed, because I was first tattooed from Malone in May 1974.
Do you believe in fate?
Yes, I do.
I would say you have to.
Oh, yes, I do.
I said, oh man, this is what we need in San Francisco. He goes,
Well, it sure was a great opportunity to get to
oh,
work.
who goes there?
Leo!
Right. I didn't think you'd make it. All right. Yeah, Jesus. It wouldn't be a complete party without you. I was so mad that we're going to make it to this.
Right, Paulo.
Hey, we're just rehashing old times.
Oh, yeah,
realistic
great.
scene with the. That's when I first met you, Leo. How in Tattoo City was open.
Yeah, basically around then.
Yeah. Because Leo turned me onto punk rock and moment. That was great. That's the thing, is all the styles that have come through here. It was like a thing that I started out just wanting to do the Japanese stuff, and then kind of, I guess like meeting you, Bob, it got me a little back into my, SoCal roots and different kinds of like art like that. And then when I met Leo, it was the first time I got turned on to tribal stuff or pattern, just dealing with black patterns. Like I remember doing your arms, I couldn't figure out how to, I was so hung up on like things that had symbolism and stuff, and I kept saying, well, just get the shape right like this.
Yeah, it's just the graphic content that I like.
Yeah, it's good.
Leo's, his influence is great because he's super humble. Like, perhaps even to a fault sometimes, Like, he doesn't really believe the hype about himself. But he also, whatever he does, he's fully dedicated to it. Like completely and thoroughly, It's like he loves motorcycles, so he is deeply studied with motorcycles. I'm sure you saw the one at his house. Mm-hmm. Or like blues guitar, right? Loves blues guitar. And not just in like, oh, I'm going to casually listen to blues guitar. Like, no, he loves it enough where he studies it, plays it, goes to Mississippi occasionally to play with the descendants of the guys who started blues guitar in the U.S., So I think that his... part of the influence on me is just being around someone who does have legendary status and ultimate respect, but is also completely humble and also completely dedicated to their interest, which is amazing. He's a connection to like a broader, perhaps deeper world of tattooing, being that he's one of the few people, if not the only one, that Hardy taught how to tattoo or encouraged, like directly.
This is a real big one. I did this book in 1980 of Borneo tattoo designs. Yeah. And this is really why I'm tattooing, because like I like to tell the story. We're looking at my art show, and Ed and I are looking at it, and Ed says, hey Leo, you want to do one of these on yourself? And I'm like, wow, that sounds like a novel idea. And I truly didn't imagine that, number one, I was going to be a tattoo artist now, when he said that, when he asked that. This was the design that I tattooed on my leg in 1980. Hey Leo, what do you think? You want to do one of those on yourself? I'm like, oh, okay. I'll do that.
Made perfect sense to him.
I'll do that, okay. But yeah, Hardy tricked me into the business. He did. I didn't think I was going to start tattooing.
We hear stories about people who tried so hard to find their opportunity, and they just had to get tricked in the whole time.
Yeah, that's how
everyone starts.
That's how you have to do it. But yeah, this was a Xerox book that I circulated to the tattoo world, literally around the world.
Yeah.
To my friends in Europe and England and around the United States, and yeah, these drawings got around. These rosette drawings, particularly, they really made the rounds. Sometimes if you punch up Borneo rosette designs, my drawings from 1980 come up. I mean, okay, I'm not trying to claim ownership to these drawings. Of course, they're drawings of Borneo Sarawak, actually, particularly tattoo designs. And I drew that tattoo out that was on a guy in National Geographic from an article in the 60s. He had that tattoo. I isolated that spiral from the middle and used it as my logo for many years.
Leo means a lot to me. I mean,
really just obviously set the stage for everything that I've come to know about tattooing, really.
How long have you known him?
Oh man, known Leo for about 20 years at this point. I came to get tattooed from him, and then we just immediately hit it off as in a friendship way, and wasn't really planning on tattooing, it just kind of naturally progressed. We hung out playing music, and then somebody quit, and I kind of was like, maybe I could do this. And Leo and Diane took me on. It was 18 years ago last month.
Yeah. Were they pretty encouraging when you showed interest in that? Were they pretty like all in, or did you have to twist their arms a little bit?
It was a little bit of both. It was a little bit of twisting, because it was, the person that left, there was bad stuff, kind of didn't end in a very good way.
Yeah.
So they really were kind of like, we need to kind of think about this for a minute. Sure, why not, and they made me sweat it for a couple weeks. And then I'd been working at a bookstore at the time, and they showed up, and Diane came up and said, well, got to put in your 2 weeks. You're going to come work for us. But they did, with the caveat that I had one class left for my degree, and they made me finish my math class and get my degree.
That's good. Yeah, that's good guidance.
Yeah, I'm very thankful for that, because I probably wouldn't, and
right.
Get right there and not quite. So that was really cool, and just like, these people are good people.
So what is it like carrying the torch for this shop at this point?
Oh, I try to not think about it. The gravity of it's pretty huge, I mean, he changed tattooing, one of the very few people that created a style, and to try and carry that on it's a lot, but I'm very proud to be able to do it, and to keep the name going and try and carry on his work as much as possible, and put my own spin on it. But yeah, it's I didn't realize the gravity of everything when I first started hanging around. And as the years progressed, it's just revealed itself of like, wow, I didn't know, I knew who Leo was and what he had done, but not the full scope of it.
Yeah.
It was it's pretty insane.
I feel like it's rare to get into a situation like that where as you peel more layers back, it gets better.
Yeah.
Because most people don't have that foundation, all the history, and that. Obviously, he's like a rare person.
Yeah. Yep.
And what he's done is so massive, but he's so humble at the same time, so you can almost miss it. Mm-hmm. And I think about how many people he must have tattooed throughout his career who didn't, maybe they knew he was the guy, oh, my friend got this great tattoo and he gave a great experience, but people must have missed that.
Oh yeah.
A bunch of times.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens to every tattooer where sometimes someone just walks in and they have a great time, but they're like, whatever, that's my tattoo guy.
Mm-hmm. And they go, yeah, exactly. And it especially, he would do walk-ins. And when I first started hanging around, he's been retired for a few years now, but
yeah.
Just had no problem. If it was in his scope of what he could do, that he wanted to do successfully, a lot of lettering was kind of the only things that were a lot of walk-in stuff, but he would do it and always hand the card and say, yeah, nice to meet you. And they'd leave. You're like, that person has no clue.
Yeah, I love that.
It's so cool.
It is cool.
So cool.
Yeah, because sometimes they figure it out after the fact and they're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
How did that even happen? It's like probably kind of confusing.
Right? Right?
How did I walk in and he was just up?
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And now a quick word from this episode's sponsor. Afterlife Press has just released Volume 4 of their flagship Afterlife Volumes series. Volume 4 features powerhouse tattooers Henning Jorgensen and Mike Rubendahl. These books are a must-have for tattooers and collectors alike, as they are works of art in themselves. 400 pages of interviews with both artists and stunning high-res images of their work are accompanied by letters from other industry legends and friends who they have inspired. The standard and special editions of Afterlife Volume 4 are available for order now at afterlifepress.com. The special edition has a fancy gold stamped cover with a slipcase and signed prints from each artist. If you're outside the US, you can order through Coenen Publishing in Europe and Black Claw in the UK and Australia while supplies last. Don't miss the other great publications from Afterlife Press, including Enjoy by Austin Maples, 3 issues of Disintegration, their modern-day tattoo magazine, Drawings for Tattoos, Chris O'Donnell, Volume 1, and of course, their newest stencil series books, with the first, available for order this month, featuring the work of Luciano Calderon, 175 pages of stencils and pictures from his private library. Find all of these amazing publications at afterlifepress.com. And so, as we were setting up, I just mentioned how I was watching some old interviews that I could find online, and there was the one of you walking down the beach in full black jeans and boots, and I thought that was a particularly funny shot, and you said that there was a little bit of story to that.
Yeah, that was Charlie Roberts and myself at Venice Beach, Santa Monica, actually. And the film crew from New Zealand, the sound guys said, there's too much sound around us, so we have to move. While we were walking to the new place, some young Latino gangbangers gathered around me and were asking me about my back tattoo, and were asking me if I had received it in prison. And so I thought that was quite a story.
It's crazy to look back and to see you as a young man on the beach talking about some of your earliest tattoos that you had received, and just knowing that was at the beginning of such a long and illustrious career that you had since then. As you were starting to do tribal tattooing, in the moment, did it feel like you were really pushing something new and different as far as the context of American tattooing?
Oh, absolutely so. During that era, in the late 70s to the early 80s, what was quite prominent in California, where I was fine line tattooing, which was the complete opposite of what I stood for. So yes, I had no idea that what I was doing would result in today. I really didn't. So to ask me that, I was just doing what I was doing, and I felt, of course, with the support of Ed Hardy, I felt strongly enough that, just keep my direction with it and I should be good.
Yeah, I never thought about the juxtaposition of that style with the fine line stuff, where it really kind of is the direct opposite answer to it. So, of course, it's going to be striking to people.
That's what was so funny about those young Latino boys, that were clamoring around my back tattoo on the beach during that filming. To use a single needle outline guitar string prison rig to fill in all this black on my back, that'd be quite the feat.
You'd still be there finishing it.
Yeah, so that's what was quite humorous about it.
Yeah. It's hard for me to even think about a time where tribal tattooing as a style wasn't just very recognized and common and just something that people know, because, since then it's become, I guess, kind of, if, say, like a marketing company, they want to say edgy or tattoo in any way, they put a tribal design on it, and that says, like, tattoo, or, it's become like a larger culturally significant thing. And to trace it back to just this style that you were interested in, that you started pushing as a tattooer, is that something that you're proud of, that tribal tattooing is like so culturally relevant, even bigger and more beyond tattooing itself?
Absolutely so, Andrew. I'm most proud of, during my 43 years in the business, that I have brought an awareness for traditional tattooing around the world. I truly mean that. That has been my most biggest accomplishment, is that people know about the tattooing from Borneo now, and people know about the tattooing from Micronesia now. And I'm Filipino descent. So, ever since I saw the pictures in National Geographic in the 70s of traditional tattooing around the world, I really just knew that I needed to push for that in my own tattooing career.
I feel like that's probably a goal that many tattooers have, but to truly achieve that is unique. Do you think that in tattooing now, there's still anything left that can be new? Is there still something that people can give?
Well, that's a tough one, of course, because of the vastness of tattooing, but I do think so. The purity and magic of tattooing, you can't lessen that, if you will, diminish it. Yes, I do think somehow there is that aspect left in the biz.
I think Leo's just he's another example of pursuing his passion, his personal interests, to the point where even maybe inadvertently or unexpectedly having a cultural influence. He didn't set out to have a cultural influence, He set out to study tribal because it was part of his heritage and he loved it, or like his influence on like even the aesthetic of like punk rock flyers in LA. I don't know if you guys got into any of that.
Yeah.
But it's like his interest in printing and printmaking and graphic design and then doing this stuff, and then that's somehow, but I think the important thing is that his genuine interest is what fueled the collective interest. Or maybe it was a manifestation of the collective interest, where he's just pursuing something deeply. If you genuinely pursue something because it deeply interests you, then the results will likely be positive. Maybe you won't see them in your lifetime, certainly not as big as impact as Leo has had, because that's impossible, but it's also, you can't manufacture that, you know what I mean? It grew out of his genuine curiosity,
As we were setting up too, you pulled out that portfolio with some of the old flyers that you had made. Was that stuff you were doing pre-tattooing?
Yeah, I was a photocopy artist before I tattooed. And getting all that stuff together for my upcoming book that I've been working on, it helped to see why I paid so much attention to negative space in the solid black work. Doing the flyers and the punk rock stuff, I used to use an old technology called Letraset. It was a pressed vinyl lettering. I have this friend that I was hanging out with at this time, and he was like, "Hey, let's go check out that punk rock club," And then we're like, okay, and almost, and he was an artist, and so he said, "Hey, let's start doing posters and stuff." So we do batches of posters and then hand them to the bands, and sometimes they were well received, sometimes not, but oh yeah, I drew that. When I was assembling the material for my upcoming book, I started realizing that, wow, back when I was making the flyers, I was really paying attention to negative space, and that's what helped me with launching my tattoo career with the black work, really.
Yeah, that's exactly what struck me as you were flipping through some of those pages, just the high contrast, and I can see how that stuff would appeal to the same person that heavy, high contrast tattooing would appeal to so much too.
For sure.
Yeah, just being able to see it from a mile away and still read it, whether it's somebody's arm or for the punk show this Friday night.
Yeah. That's right. In retirement, I get to, work on a lot of different stuff, and I've been interested in motorcycles all my life, so, I've been designing some gas tanks and stuff the last couple of years. It's been really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did these pots with Adam. Yeah. They came out super cool.
So how did the collaboration come about for you guys on these?
I think I just asked Leo if he wanted to decorate some pots. And he said, yeah, sure.
I actually drew on the pot, and of course, Adam did all the rest.
Yeah.
It's a quite a complicated process, wax resist and taping, and yeah, it's a lot of stuff.
Here's another one that's in progress. So you can see Leo's drawing one there. And then I've got to figure out technically how I'm going to do it, you know.
Yeah.
I think what I'm going to do with this one is it'll be like this one, but it'll be reversed. So the background will be black and then the tribal will be the negative.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course I'm trying not to do something that's like going to be goofy or embarrassing.
Right.
You know, like my hand is in it completely, but maybe not necessarily my aesthetic voice, but I like that, you know. In this particular situation, I would much rather be a facilitator for making these happen, you know, than trying to put my stink on it.
What was the span of years that you were in California tattooing?
I started tattooing. First, Hardy allowed me to tattoo my friends at Realistic. That was in 1981. And then in 82, I went to work for Dean Dennis at Dean Dennis Tattoo Headquarters for about a year and a half. That was in San Francisco. And then in 83, I moved down to LA, to Hollywood, to work for Bob Roberts at his new Spotlight Tattoo. And I worked there for 2 years. April 85, I attended a international tattoo show in Rome, Italy. And there, basically, I asked Hank if I could, you know, have a job for the summer. So, yeah, in May 85, I went to Amsterdam, Holland to work for the summer. I tattooed on and off in California from 81 until 2000 when I sold my shop in LA and I moved here. I've been in Michigan 24 years now.
What was the transition like moving to Michigan from being in California? As far as type of clientele, like the work stuff, was it very different?
Well, when Diane and I first opened up Spiral in 2004, you know, of course, this is before the internet, and I didn't really have a customer base like I had in LA 4 years previous. But, you know, we made it work. We opened the shop and, you know, I started getting some, you know, customer base. And if it was a different customer base or if my tattooing was different, not really. It remained the same, you know. You know, the people that seek me out, they're pretty much the same base as California, really. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess people getting tattooed always, you know, the ones who put in the research and stuff, they're going to find the people that are the fit
they know
for them.
who they're looking for, I think.
Yeah. So why Michigan? Is Diane from here?
Yes, Diane's from here. As a matter of fact, when she and I first got together, she was out visiting me in LA, and she asked me, "Oh, you know, you want me to move out here?" And I quickly answered no. Of course, a lot of people probably think, you know, it was a pretty big move for me to move to this climate. And I have to say, I really love the Midwest, and I really love 4 seasons. I love winter, actually, the quiet of winter and the warmth when the clouds are low and you think it's cold out, but it's really warm and insulated because it's a winter thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love it here. And yes, I moved here because Diane's from here.
Yeah. I figured that must be the case.
Yeah.
There's got to be a reason. Most people don't just drop a pin on Michigan.
Well, we looked into Hawaii in the beginning and realized that wasn't going to be possible for us. So we decided to stay in Michigan and open a shop. So we did.
Hawaii seems like a tough place as far as just being so remote.
That, and also too, when I worked for Malone in '86, there was probably maybe 5 shops or 6 shops on Oahu at that time. Now there's probably 600. You know, I mean, it's crazy.
We were walking around downtown here yesterday, and it doesn't seem like there's a ton of shops everywhere. Or maybe are they just spread out more?
Well, Andrew, that's kind of a sad story. Ann Arbor seems to be, I mean, I hate to sound all political on tape and everything, but, you know, Ann Arbor seems to be squashing out the little guy, and it seems to be, it's everywhere you look in downtown, it's all just new construction, and yeah, it's, yeah.
That's too bad, and that's a lot
is.
like where I work in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Anytime some building gets bought, everyone gets pushed out, and then it's a new high-rise condo, office building, parking garage, whatever it may be, and it's impossible for a normal person to open a business there. So they've kind of gone to the next town, and now those towns are too much and too expensive, and it's eventually, I don't know what's going to happen. We're going to run out of space.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like getting started in tattooing now, to me, seems very challenging.
I imagine it would be.
Just with the number of tattooers and very talented tattooers and the number of shops to open a shop or to even just start as a tattooer in a new city, I would be very intimidated.
As I say earlier, Andrew, I mean, every time I open Instagram, I just find the tattoo world so vast anymore.
Aside from what we're talking about now, just the challenges that face from such a massive growth in tattooing, do you think that it's, I guess, what are the positive sides to that? Because it can't be all bad.
No. If a situation is approached with truly with respect, then I think that, you know, good things, positive things can happen. And that's really what I say to all the younger generation around me that want to listen.
That's probably the most sound approach to anything, but certainly in tattooing.
Yeah, for sure.
It's weird how a lot of stuff that happened pre-internet, it's not equally represented on the internet. So if people are using that for their main source of information, I think there are a lot of that foundation does seem to get lost the further away we get from it. So I think doing stuff like this is cool to be able to share your insight and you know, share some of these stories and some of that important foundation that maybe it's not going to be found elsewhere online.
Well, as you can see, you know, books mean a great deal to me. I've been lugging around these books for decades. And because I am pre-internet, as they say.
This is your internet. This is the internet you've curated.
I used to go to the San Francisco Public Library, the main location in downtown San Francisco, and just pore over the research books. The research books weren't allowed to leave the library. You could look at them while you're there. And they had these old Xerox machines, you know, for 15 cents a copy. And man, I would just run a roll of quarters through that thing. But yeah, that was, as they say, the pre-internet stuff. But man, that was the fun in it, you know, the hunt and, you know, going through all the used bookstores in San Francisco and combing through all the stacks of old magazines and stuff. You know, that was the fun of it, really.
Yeah.
The hunt.
Stealing ideas from the larger world instead of just like recycling now. I think a lot of us are recycling because we're in this loop.
Well, we all, you know, that's the story with everything, really.
Yeah,
when you ask me
absolutely.
about something new, you know, that's hard to answer because, you know, we all recycle everything from day one.
I feel personally that a lot of my favorite tattooing is happening from tattooers here in Ann Arbor. And so I wanted to ask, what was the tattoo scene like when you came here, as far as other shops, or what was going on tattoo-wise here?
Well, thankfully, because Mike All has been with us since the beginning, you know, 20 years ago, the beginning of the shop, he was keen to bring, everybody around. Well, of course, before we opened, I made sure to make the rounds, and, I made sure to go visit Jeff and tell him I'm opening up and that. And, but overall, to answer your question, I have to say, I feel extremely fortunate to be in an environment where, man, not only is the talent super high in this area, but everybody's so nice and we all get along. And that, to me, that's so unusual in the tattoo world. Usually someone's got to have some kind of conflict with somebody else. And, here in Southeast Michigan, Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti area, we can walk into any tattoo shop and, it's just great. We get along with everybody and it's a wonderful thing. But getting back to what I first said, is like, thankfully I've had, Mike to bring everybody around, all the younger generation around. And I mean, I can't even tell you the names. It's just dozens of people, not just from Michigan, but all the younger tattoo artists that Mike knows and brings around.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about how different the tattoo community in an area like this is when everybody is just cool with each other, because that is so unique.
Yeah, it is. It's a wonderful thing that
everybody benefits.
Everybody stays positive and nurturing each other, and yeah, it's great.
Because I feel like I can see a lot of inspiration that younger tattooers have taken from the work that you've been doing here for so long. And to see that getting, people doing their take on having tribal elements in other styles of tattooing and then doing kind of their new take on everything, I think it's such a cool thing to see, like a collective, just like the development of things that have come before them and where people are pushing things now.
I've been very pleased about that, what you're speaking of. Yeah, not only Jared's work, but of course Julian, Kyle's, Karina. Yeah, I've been very pleased with the input of tribal work that around me that, from the younger generation. That's just been huge to me.
I met Leo, I started actually hanging out with Leo because of someone who used to work there, their shop help, Brandon Ferrugia. He told Leo that I play slide guitar and blues, and I didn't know Leo played guitar, was a musician at all, but he went and told Leo that I was doing that, and then Leo reached out and was like, we should play guitars together sometime. And I was like, cool, what in the world, And so I was like, absolutely. So I go over there, and the funny thing about playing music is it's like similar, to painting. It's hard to just be like, yeah, I'm just gonna do my thing, like you have to, it's kind of like you have to set all the controls in the cockpit before you can take off, and same with music. And so, but I didn't want to say no to Leo, but I wanted just to hang out with him. I was scared to play guitar with him, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, of course.
So I go over there, and Leo, he always has a doobie rolled up, and he was like, here, and I was like, I should have said nah. I love cannabis. It's like one of my favorite things, but I have a real my relationship with it is usually just at night by myself. I've figured out how it works with me and how I work with it. Yeah. But I couldn't say no to Leo, so I was like, yeah, cool. And then that just completely threw rocket fuel on my anxiety. And he's just sitting there, he's a slide wizard. Yeah. He's incredible. But he was just crushing, and I'm sitting there holding my guitar being like, oh my goodness, I couldn't even move. Like, I was just paralyzed. But then that only lasted a little bit of time. Then you just realize he is just the king of cool. Like, he is just so, it felt welcome, and he basically could tell I was nervous, and was like, I don't mind, like, if I could, like, maybe teach you some stuff about how to play slide, and then, I can learn a lot from teaching. So then he kind of was just disabling the anxiety there, and then we started like a once a week, maybe sometimes be a once a month, and but we had started just playing guitar together, and he was throwing rocket fuel on me wanting to learn how to be better at slides. So I'd come home and practice a bunch, and I'd go over there and try to show him what I've been learning. And and then he started to open the door to me of like this cool, like all of his stories, and he has binders full of really interesting, just indigenous, tribal, and photos that he has put together. It's just, I felt so thankful that he, you know, it doesn't feel like there's any age gap or any, after, you know, when you're just hanging out with him for a while, you both just melt away into just what you're doing. And
well, you guys have the same enthusiasm for the same stuff. Like it just, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yep. And he loves my family and the girls and stuff. So, and then they love him. So it's just been cool. And we had Thanksgiving over there and stuff. And,
nice. Yep. That's awesome. Yeah, it's cool when it goes that way, a situation like that, because that's like the kind of friend that like you can dream of meeting, because he's so much more, like at the core, he's just a guy who's done a lot of cool shit, and it's like, but he's just a guy. He wants to get together with people that like stuff he likes, and and I feel like to chase something for a lifetime, you want to share that too. So to find people that you're willing to pass down the stuff that you've worked all this time to gather. That's it's cool for. I mean, it's mutually beneficial for both of you guys to have a friend in each other.
Absolutely, it feels like an absolute honor that he trusts me with things that he has taken time from his life to learn, and then just talk about it and show me. It's definitely it feels like an honor for sure. This whole series has been on pause, but this one is far from done. I think, or not far from done, but this one's not done yet. This one has like somewhere to go. I want to see, maybe, I don't know. Like I don't know. But it just hasn't felt right to pick these up again. And
do you find that you take breaks in the middle of stuff often, or is that kind of rare?
I do, yeah. And that's been something that I used to feel weird about, but now I welcome it, because when you come back, you have answers that you didn't have when you stopped.
What do you think as far as his effect on tattooing in Ann Arbor specifically, as far as all the people that maybe influenced by him, people that have gotten, had personal experiences with him and all that stuff? How big of an influence how would you sum that up?
I'd say it might be bigger than anybody really knows. You know, it might be, it seems like it fractals and ripples out in a bunch of different avenues, not just in tattooing, but definitely obviously in tattooing. But yeah, like community-wise, and just the type of people that want to come through and see Spiral and meet Leo, it has this snowball effect that you couldn't replicate it anywhere else, I guess, you know?
Yeah.
When you were coming up and you were connecting with different artists and stuff, were people pretty inviting? And maybe you had validation from coming up with Ed, and people knew Ed and everything. But
most definitely, being part of Ed's group, of course, that opened every door possible. I was early on. I'm at a convention with Hardy, and we're in the elevator, and then the door opens, and like 2 or 3 people start to enter, and they see it's Hardy, and they just crumpled. I mean, it was like, oh. So early on, I knew that, Ed was a very, very important individual in the tattoo world. And so that alone, and of course, he introduced me to everybody. And being with Ed was the one.
Yeah, I kind of figured that was the case.
That was the deal maker right there.
Yeah.
That opened every door for me.
Good crew to be rolling around with. That's funny to think about when I see old photos from when Ed would go to Japan early on, and all the Japanese punk rock kids, they were getting Panthers and rockabilly stuff. And it's funny to think that everyone in Japan has Japanese tattoos, when obviously that's not the case at all.
Same like in Samoa, when I was first around Suluapi Patello, I would tattoo him and a lot of his guys and stuff, and they all wanted, tribal, and they all had their souvenir tattoos on their arms were, like sailing ships and, real traditional Western stuff, because, of course, that's what's exotic to them.
Right.
So they love that stuff.
We all want to flirt with the thing that's not who we are.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
I guess that's always
True.
been an element of tattooing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it weird for you to consider yourself kind of like an elder statesman of tattooing at this point? Coming from being the young man walking down the beach in full black jeans and boots.
Well, I still have black jeans and boots.
Yeah. You've stayed true all this time.
Funny story about that. Just you'll have to re-ask me the question. But,
Yeah.
I dressed like this for decades. And the first tattoo that Hardy did on me was this quote-unquote tribal one, Borneo-esque one that I drew, designed, and of course that he tattooed on me. And so I'm walking down the street in San Francisco in my neighborhood on Polk Street, and I have a black work shirt on, with the sleeves rolled up exactly like this. And at this point, this is only my second tattoo, or third tattoo. And this female acquaintance comes up and says, "Oh, hey, Leo, what's going on? How's it going? Oh, hey, I just got a new tattoo. You want to see it?" Yeah. And I show it to her, and she's like, she gets this look on her face, like real negative look on her face, and she goes, "It's so black and pointy." And I'm like, cool. That's what I wanted.
Nailed it.
Because if people don't want to talk to me about my tattoos, that's exactly what I wanted. That's the exact effects I wanted. So, but tell me the question again. It just reminded me of that story.
Yeah. That's
it's
great.
so black and pointy.
I was thinking that maybe she was going to say, I have the same exact one. Like they're just recycling your drawing for other customers.
No, this is 1977, so she didn't have any tattoos.
So I guess that's the reaction you'd expect from someone like that. But little did she know it was the greatest compliment she could have paid your decision.
True. No, please, can you ask me again?
So is it weird for you now to consider yourself as an elder statesman of tattooing?
No, not at all. Diane and I consider that an honor, that position an honor in the tattoo world. What's the expression? I grew up in Hawaii, so I'm always, I always think in pidgin. I'm always like, when I'm by myself, I'm always muttering pidgin expressions because I grew up in Hawaii many, many years ago. And so I kind of think in that language, if you will. So I'm trying to find the correct way to say this. Both Diane and I, we like to walk our talk. We try to basically we try to be positive role models in the tattoo world. That's basically it for me.
Yeah. I mean,
and again, I'm proud to be an elder in this world. Here, there's so much love and respect towards both of us in the tattoo world, and it's just great at my age to say that.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your book that you've been working on.
Wow.
What was it like to pour through some of the archives, physical and mental, to try to put something like that together?
It really put so much into perspective for me, Andrew. As I was saying earlier, once I started looking at the flyers that I did, I was like, wow, no wonder I jumped into this aspect of the tattoo world where these black fields and the negative space plays such an important role in my tattooing since the beginning, since 1981. So, yes, it's been very satisfying, really, to see, amassing the work, gathering the photos, the slides, the artwork, the business cards, the flyers, gathering all this stuff this last year, that Taki and I have been working on the book. It's it's made me realize a lot of stuff, actually. I try to be a humble guy in life, and I never really imagined the impact on the tattoo world. But as I was saying earlier, you know, my proudest thing is that, you know, I brought an awareness for indigenous traditional tattoo work around the world. That's huge for me, gigantic.
I know it's awkward to pay people compliments to their face too much, but I have to second that and just say that your impact has been so massive that it's bigger than just you. It's even bigger than tattooing, and that's so rare to see. And just to think about you reflecting back on all that it's amazing. That's what I love about tattooing. To think about that and to meet someone like you that's done so much, and
that's the magic.
Just keeping your head down and working all these years, and you could be the most famous, the most illustrious tattooer, but you're still sitting there one-on-one with your client doing the tattoos all that time, and that's a pretty cool thing.
Thank you. That's the magic. In 1999, Diane and I were invited to a tattoo convention in Western Samoa, put on by Zulueta and Paulo from New Zealand. It was my first time meeting Paulo, and he was amassing a group of tattooers from around the world that he was hoping to train the hand tapping technique 2 to take back to their respective countries. We were supposed to bring a flag from our country to the show. The opening parade, Paulo had a young Samoan man in the parade walking next to me with a cardboard sign that said Philippines on it. Again, Paulo was hoping to train these students to take the hand tapping back to their respective countries. If I would have brought a flag to this convention, I would have brought an American flag. And when Paulo invited me into the group formally during the show, I had to decline and explain to him that firstly, I've never been to even though firstly I'm, full of Filipino descent on both parents' side, I had to explain to Paulo that firstly, I had never been to the Philippines, nor was I raised with the culture or the language, and that I had, in my mind, I had no right to that position. And he understood, thankfully. It's really important for me to tell this story because I'll just say it simply. The thrust behind my whole entire tattoo career was not so that I would tattoo just Filipino people. I'll be honest. So I declined, and unfortunately, Paulo was murdered shortly after this visit with him, initial visit with him, so I was not able to see him anymore. It's crushing. Anyway. Well, here's the other part about the Paulo story. I didn't say earlier, but Paulo, I say he was writing a paper at the time. I don't know if that's exactly right, but Paulo was very interested in the scientific concept that lapita pottery shards were found in the South Pacific, i.e. Samoa, Fiji, Tonga, and stuff. And we talked about that on our visit, talking to me about how a lot of the Polynesian designs were so similar to the lapita pottery stuff. Well, several years ago, I had my DNA tested. And all my life, I've been telling people, oh, I'm 100% Filipino, man. You know, that's what I am. Well, in reality, I'm 55% Chinese. I'm 30% Southeast Asian. I'm 8% Pacific Islander, and even 0.5% or something Baltic because of the Spanish influence in the Philippines. So, in essence, that lapita pottery started out in Southeast Asia and migrated possibly down into the Philippines and then further down into the South Pacific, is the exact route that my ancestors took. So that's another component about the meeting Paulo. Was very important to discuss these theories about humans.
Fate.
Yes.
Back to fate.
Yes, that is fate. I truly believe in that.
Yes, I think your whole life was predetermined.
I think so. You know, in the beginning, Andrew, I used to think, wow, I'm doing all this kind of tribal stuff, you know, here in California, you know, based on ancient stuff. And, you know, do I have kind of a right to do this stuff? And, you know, like, but slowly but surely, quietly, you know, I would start to hear the ancestors that, you know, yeah, you're on the right path, you know. You're doing something that you did before.
Yeah. The fate, man. That gave me chills a little bit.
Good.
I mean, really, like, talk about one-of-a-kind kind of guy.
Yeah.
And just talking with him about all the stuff that had to, like, line up. Luck. I don't want to say luck. I think I called it fate when I talked to him. Yeah. Well, it seems like so much stuff was, like, predetermined for him based on the way he was telling me how everything unfolded.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not luck, because he was obviously the right guy for it. Mm-hmm. And he, like, respects that, and I think he must realize that. But it's crazy how the way he told the story and how it all unfolded.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Not right place in the right time, like a luck thing, but just like he put himself in the place. And just, it seems like he seeks out, he knows where to go to, like, get to the root of the thing he's interested in.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it almost seems like, yeah, it's interesting because we start talking about, like, luck or right place, right time, but he's obviously the person who was supposed to be doing all the stuff he did.
People get opportunities all the time
Yeah.
for stuff, and it doesn't always work.
Yes. Yeah. And it starts, I get that kind of touches on, like, yeah, like, are things predetermined or free will? I don't, yeah.
But I think maybe even that takes away the reality of it. Maybe that's saying the same thing as luck, just in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh, it's predetermined. Like, you're just riding the sled down the hill.
Yeah.
That's not it.
That's
That's not it at all.
That doesn't feel like it.
But I guess if you look at it like predetermined, like, we're just on this ride and these things are meant to happen in a way where, like, you can still fuck it up.
Yes, it almost seems like a mixture of the two in some way that just when you try to make sense of it in your brain, you can't. But it seems like it's almost like Leo's cosmic motion picture. Like, and he was doing the thing, and now we're, you know what I mean? Like,
that just feels cooler to consider it that way.
Yeah.
It gives us hope that we can get on our own spacecraft one day and ride through our own motion picture.
Yep. I feel like what you were saying about Leo, I feel like he's, I think everybody has this potential, but it's like they're signs, and a lot of people don't listen to them. And I think Leo has a knack for being able to listen to the signs. And the more you strengthen that muscle of following those signs and kind of not going, he's just lining up green light after green light and hitting the right one. You know what I mean? Instead of like, I feel like a lot of people about like having rigid plans or ideas can.
You get stuck to it.
Yeah, and you all of a sudden those signs will be silent. You won't even hear them anymore. And,
right.
Yeah.
I think that's about it. That touched on all the stuff
That was easy?
that I had. That wasn't so painful, was it? I hope I didn't make you dig too deep. No, that was good.
Yeah, I'm an emotional guy, you know.
Hey, I mean, I appreciate that about you. I mean, to see the emotion still feeling about something that you've spent so much and focused so long in your life on, it's a beautiful thing. That's how it should be.
I've been a lucky guy, man.
Yeah.
I can't say enough.
Yeah.
It just seemed so crazy that I was just in that right place at that right time. And like you say, fate.
And you were the right
I believe
guy.
in that, you know. I've had the strongest teachers in the biz, and I had to do them right.
And to see you kind of carry the torch and become a teacher in your own way, that it fulfilled the path.
We try.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I want to say thank you so much
Oh, you're welcome,
for
man.
sharing
Thank
so
you.
much with me and being open about it, and for taking me along the journey of your life.
Thank you.
It's been a huge honor. It's the day I've been dreaming of for a long time.
Oh, great.